Bam was the biggest disgusting simp on the face of the earth, who was thirsty over a hot girl named Rachel. She wanted to climb the legendary Tower of God, which was known for granting any wish of the person who climbed to the top. However, Bam the simp only wanted to climb the tower to be together with Rachel. He was unaware of the dangers that lay ahead of him. A beam of light engulfs Bam as he is teleported to Hedon, the caretaker within the tower. Bam is tasked to prove himself worthy of the tower by breaking a ball safeguarded by a giant eel. He rushes towards the eel but is stopped by Yuri, the princess of Jahad. She is disappointed upon seeing Bam's state since he was weak despite being an irregular, a term used for people who enter the tower from the outside. She lets him borrow a powerful sword exclusive to the princesses of Jahad, only because she finds him cute. Bam, without any hesitation, enters the cage against the charging eel. However, the eel swallowed him whole before he could even strike. Yuri shrieks in shock, but her chaperone Evan reaffirms Bam's choice to get swallowed as that was the best possible counter. Sure enough, Bam cuts through the eel's mouth, overcoming the fear of death which was the point of the test. He then rushes towards the ball to end the test, but his attempt to break the ball was futile. His helpless strikes remind him of his past when he was stuck and tried to free himself. It was for Rachel that he was able to feel alive again. She told him about her wish to see the shining stars that could only be seen at the top. It was her unfulfilled desire that forced her to abandon Bam, leaving him stranded once again. As the eel awakens, Evan shouts to Bam to call upon the power of his sword, Black March. The sword radiates with power and from the sword appears an angelic woman with long yellow hair. The sword never responded to Yuri's calls, hence proving the sword was sexist and favored boys only. The woman grants Bam with immense power since he was cute, adding on to Bam's ever-growing harem collection. The blast breaks the ball and sends the eel flying. Bam ascends to the next floor taking the Black March with him. Yuri and Evan, to retrieve the sword, head towards the testing grounds where he ascended. Bam, upon reaching, instantly finds himself included in a challenge with other regulars, a term for those who were chosen by Hedon, in which they are supposed to reduce the total number of participants from 400 to 200 by any means possible. A circle-shaped gadget known as Pocket was given to everyone to stay updated with the total count of people alive. In an instant, everyone from spearmen to snipers engaged in killing each other. Bam was terrified, so he evaded battles and ran away. Knowing he can't climb the tower if he stays scared, he decides to fight against a several-eyed giant. Rak, a giant alligator-like warrior, senses the presence of two strong swords, one wielded by a small green-colored girl, Anak, and the other wielded by Bam. Rak decides to go after Bam. As Bam was facing towards the several-eyed giant, a blue-haired boy named Kun appeared behind him, followed by the arrival of Rak. Rak wanted to fight Bam and claim the honor of defeating a strong sword wielder, whereas Kun was uninterested in fighting and more interested in gathering allies, so he decided to stick with Bam because he possessed a Jahad sword. Kun helped Bam get away from Rak, and to pass time, he inquired with Bam about his past. But Bam tells him that he does not remember anything before meeting Rachel. What a simp. Just then, Rak finds them hiding and interrupts them by jumping behind them. Meanwhile, a battle unfolds between Anak and a dual sword-wielding boy, Hats. However, this battle was short-lived as it was announced that the 200 count had been reached and further battle would disqualify them. Moreover, to progress to the next floor, every regular had to form a team of 3, and they must hold hands within 5 minutes. Since there was very little time to form teams, Kun and Bam jumped on Rak, which forcefully made him join their team. 120 regulars, including Bam, Kun, and Rak, are teleported to the next test. To form truce with Rak, Kun supplies him with a supply of chocolate bars which easily wins him Rak's support. Had he done that earlier, they would have been best friends by now. The loud room full of 120 regulars suddenly turns silent when the test administrator, Lero Ro, enters the room, who also happens to be a ranker, a term used for people who have climbed to the top of the tower. He decides to trim the crowd by pushing the crowd and setting a membrane using Shinsu, the water from the tower. Each team member must pass the barrier to beat the test. Kun is confident in Rak passing this test but doubts Bam's ability. To Kun's and everyone else's surprise, Bam is the only one on the other side who isn't pushed back, and he qualifies by default. He spends time talking with Lero Ro to kill time as Kun and Rak decide to observe other teams before passing the barrier themselves. A regular, who can't pass the barrier, starts to banter about the integrity of the test and threatens to kill the ranker. Lero Ro, displaying a difference in power levels, makes the regular regret his words. Since the trio had successfully passed the test, they started to head to the next floor. However, before parting with Bam, Lero advises Bam to steer clear of Kun, leaving him puzzled. On the next floor, one at a time, each team is called over to a dark area where the test was taking place. Hearing people screaming every time a team entered, Bam and Kun start to feel nervous. To console them, a plastic-like regular comes forward to calm them by providing them with hints. Bam naively trusts the stranger, whereas Kun remains wary of him. The regular doesn't like Kun's demeanor, so he provokes Kun by mentioning emotional details of his past. This made him lose temper and Kun jumps on the regular, but he decides to save his energy for the test as his team was called. Upon entering, the testing grounds appeared before them as a yellow-haired man, who called himself Han Sung-yu, the director of the test they are appearing for. The director, without giving any clues, starts the 10-minute-long test where they were supposed to open the correct door amongst 11 other doors within the allotted time. Having no time to waste, Han Sung-yu prepares himself a coffee, while Rak and Bam start to chase each other around, leaving Kun to Sherlock Holmes his team out of here. Close to hitting the 5-minute mark, Kun starts to lose focus as he had flashbacks of his half-sister's betrayal, which eventually brought shame upon Kun's family. The impatient Rak finally loses his cool and knocks down a door randomly, which ends the test. To Kun's surprise, instead of losing, they were qualified for the next floor. Team after team appeared in the test, and when the test was over, it was revealed that the plastic-like regular from earlier was working with Hansung. They wanted to observe how they would react to his hints. At that moment, Quant, an inexperienced test administrator, reports to Hansung that he made a mistake by making a test on a different testing ground, an untimed deathmatch. Only a team of 3 survived out of this bloodbath as they eliminated their peers within 30 minutes. He asks Hansung to save him from being punished by the higher-ups for such a mess-up. In the lobby amongst the crowd, Liro Ro appears and announces a bonus test that is voluntary to join, but the winners of the test will be granted permission to climb the tower immediately. Everyone in the lobby participates in the test along with new upcomers consisting of the surviving 3 people of the bloodbath. The test was divided into 5 rounds where in each half, 5 teams will be pitted against each other, and they can choose when to enter. Whichever team obtains the crown, they must assign one teammate to sit on the throne while their other 2 teammates defend the person on the throne from the other teams trying to steal the crown. If the team with the crown is able to defend themselves, the 4 teams against them are swapped out. And if for some reason, the person on the throne leaves the throne, all 5 of teams are swapped out and the game continues. The team consisting of Onok, Hats and a jumpsuit dude, Shibisu, go first against a team of weak regulars. Onok easily wipes them out and wears the crown. During the fight, Bam notices amongst the new upcomers, there was a yellow-haired girl with a cloak with a face that resembles Rachel. Shibisu, being the weakest of the trio, tries to switch places with Onok so she can defend the crown. But removing the crown after it has been worn by a teammate goes against the rules. Kun decides to observe before they decide to fight. The second round begins, and 2 teams enter the stage. Hats, without breaking a sweat, deals with one team, while Shibisu fights off 2 members of the other team as one of them dozes off. Being a firm believer of gender equality, he punches Serena, a girl, without hesitation. Suddenly she sees an opening and decides to pin down Shibisu, but Hats saves him. The teammate who had been sleeping until now had pre-planned to shoot the crown off Onok, while the other 2 teammates kept Hats and Shibisu at bay. He uses Shinsu to do this but is unsuccessful as she uses her sword violently, making them rush to protection in their waiting room, disqualifying them. Meanwhile, Bam's sword begins to react weirdly. Onok senses the Black March and heads to the waiting room where Bam is, leaving her throne and disqualifying her team. Onok is angry to see the Black March in possession of a weakling and demands him to return it. She reveals that she is one of the princesses of Jahad, and that the sword in his possession is part of the 13-month series, each having a unique name. Her sword was the Green April, but due to being indebted to Yuri, Bam refuses to fulfill Onok's demands. So Onok decides to take it by force, but is stopped by Liro Ro. After that, they make a bet instead. If Bam's team is the last team to still be wearing the crown, the Green April will be his, and if not, then the Black March will be hers. Bam was hesitant to take this wild chance, but he had no choice as Onok threatened to take it anyway by killing him after the game ended. Bam's teammates bite back at Onok for even thinking they would lose. He feels sorry for causing a lot of trouble for his teammates, but Kun thanks him instead as Onok was dethroned. On their way back, a cloaked girl named Endorsi says something behind Onok's waiting room which provokes her, but she is stopped by Hats. Endorsi was with the team of newcomers and Rachel's look-alike is her teammate. Kun, now with Onok's dismissal, decides to enter with his team. Like Kun, many others also entered as Onok's strong team was out, leaving the crown for anyone's taking. From Shinsu users to unique fighters, all get ready to steal the crown, but Kun reaches first to the throne and instead of wearing the crown, puts it in his bag. Everyone begins to attack Kun to gain the crown. However, Kun blocks and absorbs attacks into his suitcase. Seeing that protecting the crown was a lot of work, he throws the crown on the stage and watches from his high throne the commotion that ensues. Everyone tries to grab the crown for themselves, while Kun laughs at their foolishness. He draws their attention and places another crown on Bam's head. It turns out the previous crown he had thrown out was a replica he had made in his suitcase. Everyone is embarrassed as Kun made a fool out of them. They all agree to kill Kun, but as they charge, Rak single-handedly deals with them all with his spear throw, which produces a heavy wind sending every attacker flying away. As the second last round begins, 3 other teams enter the ground. Kun, feeling no pressure at all, decides to relax as he conserves his energy for the last round. Before even attacking Kun's team, a fight breaks out between the 3 teams as one of the 3 teams were allies of Kun from the first test. The round ends when the 3 teams are unable to fight anymore as the team allied with Kun voluntarily backs down after beating the other 2 teams. The last round begins, forcing every other team to step out. Amongst all the teams were also the team of newcomers whose potential was still unknown. Again, a battle ensues within the teams present, but this time instead of a whole team, a woman in full black tights proceeds to knock teams out one by one. She gets interrupted by Endorsi from the newcomers team. The team of newcomers, instead of stealing the crown, begin to help Kun's team. Kun and Rak also engage in battle while Rachel's look-alike, with a hooded cloak, stands beside Bam. She talks to Bam and upon hearing her voice Bam inclines towards his belief that she was in fact Rachel. Bam calls her out, but she does not respond and instead she lets the third member of her team, who is a giant with a demon-like face, stand in between them. Endorsi does not let the lady in tights get past her for a while, but in the process of doing so she breaks her heel causing her to trip. With no time to waste, the lady in tights gets past her, Rak and the demon-like giant and swings her weapon towards Rachel's look-alike. The weapon cuts her forehead making her hood fall back, revealing that she was in fact Rachel. Bam recognizes Rachel in an instant and as the girl in tights goes for another strike, Bam jumps over Rachel protecting her from the strike and injuring himself in the back of the head in the process. The injury causes Bam to lose his mind and he starts to release a lot of Shinsu in the form of fire from his body. The heavy flames break the mask of the girl in tights forcing her to get on her knees and she uses her hand to conceal her face. Bam stands up to deliver the final blow. As he was doing so, the angelic woman within the black march appears and puts him to sleep. No winner is chosen since the crown is broken by the heavy flames and the test ends. Bam and the lady in tights both are bandaged, and everyone is given a 3-day break by Lero-Ro. Lero-Ro meets with Hansung to discuss his concerns with upcomers who were deemed dangerous and still allowed to partake in the test. Hansung reveals that the reason he held tests were not to identify who were deemed worthy of climbing the tower, but instead to eliminate anyone who can pose a threat to the tower, indirectly indicating that Bam was one of the threats as he possessed enormous power. Kun, who is sitting beside Bam's rest bed, hears a knock on the door. At the door was Rachel who came to check Bam's condition. Rachel stays with Bam, who is injured, and she reminisces about their conversation about the stars. Rachel confides in Kun, asking him not to reveal her presence to Bam. Kun is puzzled by Rachel's request because Bam clearly wants to be with her, but Rachel believes that their relationship would become a burden if they were together openly. Having known narcissistic women in his past, Kun thinks that upholding her secret works out for the best. Meanwhile, Anak complains to Shibisu about the Black March not responding to her. Shibisu gives it a try but gets electrocuted instead as he is not handsome enough. Endorsi meets with Anak who tells her that the sword belongs to Yuri who was chosen as a princess 500 years ago, and she is the first fisherman to get a 13-month series weapon. So Endorsi warns Anak to watch her place as she is an imposter, and she could wind up dead if she meddles in matters of other people. In his room, Bam awakens learning that he has been asleep for 5 days, but Kun tells him to not worry. In Bam's absence, Lero-Ro had commenced the 4th test where he had explained that this test had to be conducted after assigning positions. The 5 basic positions taken in battle consist of firstly the fishermen that fight in close range. Second are the spearmen that control the enemy from far range. Third in line are the light bearers, responsible for illuminating the tower's voids and managing situational information. Following them are the scouts, diligently watching for enemy activity and aiding the fishermen. The 5th group consists of wave controllers proficient in Shinsu combat. Individuals are chosen for specific roles, and fulfilling those positions is imperative. In Bam's absence, Kun sought clarification from Lero Ro regarding potential disqualification. It turned out that Bam had been designated as a wave controller. Due to the instructor's tardiness, his class would commence 2 days later, making Bam remarkably fortunate. At present time, Bam is due to start his training tomorrow. Bam inquires about the girl that he helped, but Kun lies and tells him that she doesn't know who Bam is. Kun relieves Bam and gives him a new set of clothes. Kun wishes Bam well on his training. Class begins and the instructor, Master Yaga, tells everyone that they have to make a contract on each floor before using Shinsu. Loro, the person that always seems to sleep, has already made a contract. They are told to reveal their pockets and hold them, eyes closed, while saying form contract with the administrator. Bam does as instructed and finds himself in front of a giant creature. Forming the contract, the creature warns him that for him this was not a contract, but rather a shackle. The contract forming seems to have drained everyone, so the class is dismissed. As everyone walks out, Bam apologizes for hurting the masked girl, but she reminds him that he was hurt too. Ho and Loro, being team members, introduce themselves to Bam and form a friendly alliance. Kun and Bam meet up in their room, but Rak seems to have an ongoing test where he has to hit targets from far away as he is a spearman. However, outclassed by fellow spearmen, Rak leaves to train himself. Hats and Shibisu approach Bam's room for a request. They wanted to be friends with Bam's team. Kun was initially hesitant due to their teammate Onok stealing Bam's Black March, but Hats tells them that Shibisu and himself are now a duo, cutting off Onok. Hats and Kun start off with some friction, but Bam asks Kun to befriend them. Seeing Bam, Kun, Hats, Shibisu, and Loro's team having lunch together, Endorsi decides to join in. Shibisu tells her that since the scouts test is to make 10 friends in a week, they are spending some time together with other competitors. Shibisu asks her to be her friend, but she refuses. Looking at Endorsi's pathetic attempt to lump in with commoners, Onok comments on her lowly state despite being a princess of Jahad. Everyone seated is shocked to see 2 princesses at the same place. Onok leaves, reminding Bam that he wouldn't be receiving the Black March back. Bam asks if the princesses are related by blood, but Kun explains that the princesses of Jahad are chosen from respected tribes to represent themselves. The next day, a game starts. Each player is handed a needle that they need to use to push their competitor off the platform, and performance determines the grade. Onok leaps onto Endorsi's platform to fight against her. Endorsi throws her towards the edge. She questions Onok's logic to challenge a real princess, where Onok snaps back at her, telling her all the princesses are imposters. Endorsi taunts Onok by throwing away her needle. Onok follows her while she jumps around platforms. Meanwhile, Kun gathers information on Rak, where he finds that he passed his test. He, however, is unable to find much about Rachel and Bam. He moves on to Onok Jahad, where he finds that she was a ranker and was granted a green April after becoming a princess of Jahad. However, she is climbing the tower despite her achievements, and even more suspicious is the fact that she has been recorded dead. Endorsi pushes people on her way, reducing the players to 9, followed by Onok that throws her needle and slides towards her using Shinsu. She disbalances Endorsi but is countered and then slammed to the ground. Endorsi calls her an imposter, revealing that the Onok she is fighting is actually the orphaned daughter of Onok the princess. Endorsi tells her that she had quit the crown game to confirm with her as to why her mother decided to choose the path of misfortune. Onok reveals that her mother was content with her life and had married a good cook, but he was killed by her sisters, the princesses. This is because the princesses have a certain code to follow, in which one of the rules is to remain celibate to avoid transfer of their power. Onok the princess clearly defied this rule and was not forgiven. So as her daughter, she will exact her revenge against anyone that goes by the name Jahad, and first on her hit list is Endorsi. Enraged, she rushes towards Endorsi. Using Shinsu, Onok slides from place to place trying to push Endorsi down below. Endorsi blames Onok the princess for breaking the code, but Onok does not care. One of Endorsi's high heels cracks, pushing her over the edge. She manages to hang over the edge, asking for mercy from her only niece. She annoys Onok, who wants her to fall. In the end, Endorsi grabs Onok's legs, carrying her down as well. Sore from pain, they both lay to recover. Endorsi praises her mother for being kind to her in the past and asks Onok if she ever regretted her choice. Onok, remembering moments of last seeing her and having a recollection of her happy memories, denies this. Meanwhile, the wave controllers are practicing their use. They have to pop balloons aiming their Shinsu. Bam is successful in popping all the balloons instead of one, hence needs more practice on control. Ho seems to lag behind the rest of his peers. Bam makes Lauro a makeshift pillow after it gets drenched in the drool of drunk Serena, so he helps repay him by giving tips on controlling Shinsu. Ho tries to cool in front of them, but is jealous of Bam in secret. Kun updates Bam about Onok and Endorsi as Shibisu creeps up crying about his fellow acquaintance getting hurt. The friend-making task is not going well as they only manage to make 8 friends and the deadline is the very same day. Bam, sympathizing with them, decides to help them. Endorsi, spending all her credits on medical assistance, now needs more points for food. Luckily, Bam along with Hats bring food for her. They bribe her for her signature that deems her as a friend on Hats's and Shibisu's forms in exchange for food. They lay her thick with compliments and promise her food every day for the entire test. She gets sold despite being a princess, reaching new lows. Onok also signs up as a friend for the same reasons, completing the friend-making task. Although this was all Kun's plan, they thank Bam for the help. After much struggle, Hats thanks Kun despite their differences. Endorsi meets up with Rachel, who now goes by the alias Michelle Light to keep herself anonymous, especially from Bam. She reassures Rachel that she is concealing her identity but does not understand why. After all, Bam is cute and has risked his life trying to find her. Endorsi warns her that whatever she is after should be better than the risk of losing Bam. Rachel leaves without saying a word. Bam seems to draw suspicion from Ho as he gets very proficient in using Shinsu in a short span. Later, Lero finds himself in a meeting with Hansung Yu, demanding explanations as to why he will not take charge of the next trials, as they plan to replace him with Quant. Elsewhere, Lero gathers all the participants to explain the next test called the Joint Test. Rack and Rachel's demon-like team member will not participate because they were the only ones to pass a previous test. For this test, the 28 participants will be divided into 2 teams and receive individual marks based on their respective performances. Kun realizes that he is on the A team, while Bam is on the B team. There will be its, one will be Quant, and the other will be a fisherman from the team. The its will wear a red badge to be identified, and the test will take place in a huge circular building. To win, a team must either make their teams at reach the finish line or steal the badge from Quant. The winning team will get 100,000 points, and if they manage to take Quant's badge, they will get 200,000 points. However, they will lose if Quant manages to take the badge from their team's it. The participants are taken to the circular building. Tima goes first, and Kun steps up as the leader. He tells the team his plan to lure Quant using Shibisu as bait. After a while, they manage to lure Quant, who is only allowed to use a limited amount of Shinsu to make the test fair. Quant goes after Shibisu but realizes it's a trap and plays along. He knocks out Liron 3, one of the light bearers, and then chases after Shibisu again. However, he falls into the trap set for him as Onok, Team Azit, was in charge of stealing Quant's badge in a surprise attack. Despite Onok's attempts with her Green April, she fails to take the badge from Quant. To Lero's surprise, it seemed Quant was going all out even though he was facing regulars. However, Quant was holding back and waiting for the team's next plan, as their surprise attack had flopped. Onok and Shibisu start to run away to initiate Plan B. Quant generously lets them both run away, giving them a 111 count head start. Onok keeps running to get to the bridge and try to win the test for her team. However, Kun knows that Quant is not going to let off that easily. As Quant is done counting, he sets off after them. Kun hears Quant approaching and tells everyone to get into position. Onok is in an elevator, so she needs 10 minutes to get to the bridge while going up the lift. Quant will have to use the stairs, making him an easy target for an ambush. They must stall him for at least 5 minutes. Without wasting any time, Quant reaches the staircase and realizes that he is being ambushed. Realizing that Team Azit is on her way up, he decides to leave to pursue her. But before he leaves, he decides to punish the attackers hidden in positions. Using his fast speed and reflexes, he knocks out the hidden ambushers one by one, hardly even stalling a minute. Quant gets on his way to reach the it. Onok manages to get out of the lift, escorted by 2 regulars. Quant soon catches up with her as the entire group on the stairs is defeated. Lero watches them from a monitor and thinks they have already lost, as it's only a matter of time before Quant catches up with Onok. Lero then thinks that maybe he could have copied the badge with his briefcase, but Hansung tells him that's impossible because he modified the badges with his Shinsu so that they can't be copied or compressed. Shibisu and 2 other participants who escorted Onok manage to react to Quant, only to be easily defeated by him. Quant finally arrives at the bridge Onok is walking on, but on the way, he runs into Kun, who is waiting for him. Quant asks about Onok as he doesn't see her on the bridge. Kun tells him that she jumped to use the exit below, but Quant doesn't believe him because she couldn't withstand the fall from so high. Kun tells him that she is a princess of Jahad, and after injuring herself in the fisherman test, she strengthened her body. She must be running through the darkness by now. Anak is actually hiding on a copy of the blue lighthouse that Kun, as a light bearer, has. He tries to trick Quant into jumping over the bridge and going after her, but Quant knows that she is hiding under the bridge since he senses the Shinsu of the lighthouse. Kun acts stupid, forcing Quant to jump off the bridge along with him because if Kun dies, the lighthouse Anak is on will also disappear, and she will fall into the void. Kun, while falling, lets go of Quant to be saved by Anak's sword, causing only Quant to fall to the ground. Anak climbs back onto the bridge to reach the end and win the test. Bam, who is spectating, is happy to see Kun win, but the rest of Group B is afraid, as if Group A wins, Group B will fail by default. Anak, just a few steps away from victory, is interrupted by Quant, who is already waiting for her there. Without giving her time to do anything, he snatches the badge, disqualifying Team A. After returning to the spectator room, Kun apologizes to everyone in his team for not being a good leader. Kun acts sad, even though he was able to succeed in his true motive, which was to save Bam from elimination. He used Loro's help to get Quant back on the bridge. Lero wonders why Kun betrayed his own team, but Han Sung-yu explains that he knew what he was doing from the beginning. Loro, Anak, Shibisu, and Kun himself had already qualified, therefore, he let his other friends who are in Group B move on. While Group B is busy deciding who will be the leader, Endorsi offers herself as the leader and is accepted by Group B as she was the most skilled among them. Endorsi, being the leader, assigns herself as the it of their team. She decides to scatter her team to distract Quant even more. She, along with Bam and 2 other participants, takes the lift. Hats and a couple of spearmen take the stairs, while Serena and Ho wait at the entrance. While everyone is being positioned, Serena opens up to Ho that she has lost her motivation to continue climbing the tower. This is because she knows that in the next test she will probably have to kill the people she has bonded with in the last few days. She says that before she came to the tower, she used to steal goods with her friends who were bandits. But one night, during their escape from a ship they had broken into, a ranker attacked them and killed all of her friends. Luckily, she was saved by Head-On, who brought her to the tower to participate. Serena, at first, had no trouble killing someone, but now she is hesitant to do so. Ho replies that their relationship hasn't changed, making it clear that it was always kill or be killed for him. Meanwhile, Hats becomes alert as Quant approaches him. Endorsi and the others make it out of the lift and onto the bridge. Endorsi betrays her companions by beating the 2 of them. Endorsi justifies her act of betrayal by connecting it to her past. She comes from a family where adopted girls fought each other, hoping to find someone worthy of being a princess of Jahad. Endorsi recounts how she used to watch the other girls eat at the table while she ate on the floor. However, one day she managed to sit at the table and eat the food she had always dreamed of, as she had eliminated all of her adoptive sisters. She warns Bam that he too will have to do similar things if he wants to keep moving up with Rachel. Meanwhile, Hats instructs the 2 spearmen to hide to ambush Quant later. Quant, appearing visibly upset at the humiliation he suffered by accepting Kun's help, doesn't go light on the team. Meanwhile, Ho abandons Serena to pursue his own plans, disregarding Endorsi's commands. Endorsi, in her fight against the 2 contestants she intended to defeat, Bam intervenes and asks Endorsi to stop, reminding her that she too was once weak. While she is distracted, one of the fishermen attacks her with his sword's ignition blast, but Bam steps in to take the blow. He then heads off to find Rachel, while Endorsi finishes the 2 fishermen. Meanwhile, Hats tries to buy time by stalling Quant but fails to do so, as he proves to be a strong match for him. In the final desperate attempt, Hats clings to Quant to allow the spearmen to attack him, but he discovers that he has been betrayed by the spearmen who had already fled. Quant learns of the betrayal and immediately pursues the spearmen, not sparing them, as their betrayal angered him. Meanwhile, Rachel is taken hostage by Ho, threatening to hurt her knowing that if he hurts her, Bam will also suffer the consequences, something Ho discovered through the envelope he had received earlier. The test, broadcasting to Team B, is stopped as Lero pleads with Hansung to intervene between them, but Hansung insists that the test must continue. Bam, on his way to Rachel's lighthouse, finds no signal of Rachel on his pocket, indicating something has gone wrong. Ho realizes that Bam will come to Rachel's rescue. However, Quant shows up before Bam does, ruining his plan. Bam also arrives shortly after. Ho uses Rachel as a hostage and makes Bam confront Quant. As Bam starts to gather Shinsu in his palms to fire at Quant, Quant uses his ranker level Shinsu technique to immobilize Bam, making his body unresponsive. Preferring to go after the it, he releases his technique on Bam and leaves him with Rachel and Ho. As Quant was leaving, Ho, in desperation, accidentally stabs Rachel in the back. Bam mimics the technique Quant used and immobilizes Ho, knocking him to the ground as he grabs Rachel. Quant is impressed seeing that Bam had imitated the technique of a ranker. Ho, lying on the ground, admits that he is envious of Bam and tells him about his past and how he wasn't able to protect anyone in his village because he was weak. He then tells Bam about how he was never interested in climbing the tower, and he only did what he did because he hated him. After these words, he takes the knife he stabbed Rachel with and takes his own life. Serena arrives at the scene and finds Ho already dead. Quant approaches them and tells them that the test must still continue. Dorsey also joins in and tricks Quant into thinking he stole the badge from her when, in fact, it was her panties he had stolen. She is able to steal Quant's badge, thus ending the test with Team B as winners. Rachel and Ho are hurried to the medical rooms. Rachel's demon-like team member, who was sitting beside Rack, also suddenly disappears into thin air after Rachel's stabbing. She is immediately tended to. The next day, while everyone is having a meal, Kun retreats to his room as he reveals that he knew the whole scheme from the start. Since only 2 wave controllers could pass and since he knew that Loro had already qualified, he did his best to get Bam enough points to pass, including convincing Loro to help him. The masked girl, HWA Ryan, warned Kun of Ho's jealousy. Suspicious of Ho, he goes into his room secretly and copies Ho's letter in his absence. While Kun is resting, Rack interrupts him by banging his door as hard as he could. Kun, annoyed, steps up to the door only to see a mini Rack. Rack blames Hansung for shrinking him as he called him tiny without realizing who he was. He pleads with Kun to make him big with his magic briefcase, but Kun tells him he doesn't have an enlarging function on his briefcase. Rack decides to go to Bam, but Kun reveals to him that Bam has no intention of continuing to climb the tower as his motivation was Rachel, who is now in a coma-like state due to her stab wound. Rack is determined to make Bam continue, but Kun asks him not to. At that very moment, Bam appears and reveals that Rachel can no longer walk due to the injury, which gives Bam all the more reason to climb the tower as he will be Rachel's legs. Bam also asks for a favor, which is to organize a funeral for Ho. Everyone, including Quant and Lero, attend the funeral and they all toast to their parted friend. Later that day, while he is strolling around with Rachel in her wheelchair, she apologizes for abandoning him. Bam forgives her and tells her that she is irreplaceable since she was the one who brought light to his dark times. On the same day, while everyone dozed off after drinking wine, Serena leaves the tower without saying goodbye to anyone. Shibisu, who was awake, met with her before she left. She gave her only dagger to Shibisu before leaving as a departing gift. Elsewhere, Master Yuga is in a secret conversation with someone through his pocket, claiming that he will soon recover Black March and Green April. Before he finishes his report, he is interrupted by Hansung, who eavesdrops on him. Master Yuga is an alias used by Ren, the 67th agent of Jahad's Royal Guard. Hansung reveals that he had discovered him some time ago but ignored him. Ren, feeling cornered, tries to attack Hansung by summoning a giant snake, but Hansung counters with another snake that cuts the other snake's nape, stopping Ren's attack. Ren admits that he has been bored for a long time because he is unmatched, but Hansung makes it clear that he has no intention of confronting a Jahad ranker. Hansung knows that Ren is after the 2 Jahad swords, the Green April and Black March, and seeks to eliminate Onok. He agrees to help him complete his mission because he bears the responsibility of seeing if someone is a potential danger to the tower and the Jahad family. Hansung asks Ren to inform his higher-ups about his plans. On the other hand, Kun is talking to Lero Ro, telling him about the letter that was given to Ho before the formation of the teams. He reveals that the person who delivered it knew the position of the participants as Rachel and Ho were carefully placed on the same team, indirectly hinting that Hansung as the director might have done so. Later, Lero seeks out Hansung to announce the people who have passed their respective positions test. Lero gathers everyone in a room and starts by firstly calling those who passed the fisherman position, which included Dorsey, Onok, and 3 others. Then of the spearmen were Rack and 2 others who passed. Amongst scouts were Shibisu, Hats, and a small blonde girl named Neri who passed. As expected, in wave controllers are Loro and Bam who were able to pass. Lastly, in light bearers are Kun and Rachel who passed, but due to Rachel's injuries she fails the test. Another spearman who does not pass complains about the results, so Hansung calls him over and gives him an impossible test which he was doomed to fail. Kun, even after passing by a margin, complains about the result. He is called to the front where Hansung asks him why he is dissatisfied despite having passed. Kun explains that he wants to see Rachel participate in the final test. Hansung flat out denies his request as he points out that due to her condition she cannot participate according to the rules. Kun asks him to allow him to do a director test so he can allow Rachel to participate. Hansung mentions that only irregulars can apply for such a test, and at that very moment Bam stands up and reveals that he is an irregular, surprising everyone as no one knew it until that moment. Hansung asks him to accompany him while the rest wait and discuss Bam's situation. Lero warns everyone that they were about to face a crucial decision as, if they collaborated with Bam and passed the test, they will be considered accomplice to an irregular forever. Despite this, the majority decide to continue supporting Bam and await his return. Bam finds himself in front of the giant creature, the administrator, with whom he had earlier made a Shinsu contract with. Bam asks the administrator to allow Rachel to continue participating in the trial, to which he agrees. On his way out, he informs Hansung that the administrator had given permission for Rachel and himself to continue. Without any further problems, the final test begins. Rak is reverted to his normal size for this test. Since this was an underwater test, this test required Bam and Rachel to blend in with the fishes with a bubble covering them with Shinsu. The net dolphins, without noticing Rachel and Bam, will build a net around them, which traps them along with fishes for the queen net dolphin to eat. If the queen net dolphin consumes everything in the net and spits back Bam and Rachel out successfully, they will pass the test. Everyone except Rachel and Bam were tasked to protect the net dolphins so they're not disturbed by other predators while Bam and Rachel enter the net queen dolphin's mouth. The leading two predators of the net dolphins are the striped earth pigs and the barnacle goblins. The barnacle goblins use giant wetworms to steal net dolphins as prey. If the giant wetworms eat Rachel and Bam, everyone will fail. Moreover, if the striped earth pig scares off the net dolphins, they will be disqualified. Also, there is a monster called the bull deep in the sea that they must avoid at all costs. This beast is so ferocious that it even makes the rankers run away from its ferocity. After the thorough explanation, Hansung initiates the test. Bam and Rachel are inside the Shinsu bubble just like they were told to do so while the net dolphins enter the water. Kun guides everyone on how to position their teams from his lighthouse. Hats, alongside two others, are supposed to keep an eye on the barnacle goblins, whereas the group of spearmen wait from above for the worm's movement. Shibisu along with Anak and Endorsi are supposed to keep an eye on the striped pigs. Shibisu is left all alone when he realizes Anak and Endorsi have already left the post, leaving Shibisu alone. Meanwhile, Yuri and his guide Evan, along with two other people, start to draw closer and closer to Bam. Back at the test, Hats reports to Kun that he has found blood tracks from where the two people alongside him had disappeared. Shortly after his report, Shibisu finds himself in front of the bull who was devouring one of the people Hats was with. At that very moment, a net dolphin passes by the bull. Ignoring Shibisu, it starts to follow the net dolphin. To avoid the net dolphins getting killed, Shibisu uses Serena's dagger to divert its attention to him. Successful in getting its attention, Shibisu starts to run, but since the bull was faster, it easily catches up with Shibisu in no time. To save Shibisu from the bull, Anak appears from the dark as she saves Shibisu with her green April. Endorsi also joins the fight, which leads to an argument between Anak and Endorsi as they did not want to share their prey. Endorsi suggests that they should make a bet. Both Anak and Endorsi will get 5 minutes each to fight with the bull. If Endorsi wins, Anak would give her the green April, whereas if Anak wins, Endorsi would become her servant for life. Hats alerts Rak and the other spearmen of the goblins as they are on the move. Kun asks Hats to figure where the goblins were headed while the spearmen await his signal of a surprise attack on the goblins. Meanwhile, the net dolphins have started to form a net with Bam and Rachel in it. Kun worries about the worms as he will not be able to see them once they go underground. Upon hearing Neri, the small blonde girl, decides to help as she manages to find a way thanks to her ability. In the meantime, Endorsi is fighting the bull, but she is still unable to defeat it within 5 minutes as during the last few seconds the bull decides to make a run for it. Anak and Endorsi both follow the bull into the dark. Ren, who is also known as Yuga, enjoys his pizza as he watches the princesses fall into his trap. Back at the lighthouse, Kun asks if Neri can control other creatures like net dolphins or the bull with her ability. She replies that at her level she isn't able to control other creatures, but if she was at ranker level she could have been able to do so. Returning to Endorsi, she lost sight of Anak whilst following her and again encounters the bull, who catches her off guard with its much faster and stronger attacks. The bull easily knocks her out unconscious. Elsewhere, Anok continues to look for the bull but encounters Ren instead, whom she tries to ignore. However, when he mentions her late mother, Princess Anok, she stops. Ren introduces himself to her and shows her her mother's necklace. Ren simply laughs, insinuating that he was responsible for his mother's death as Anok prepares to attack. Meanwhile, the goblins continue to advance. Rak asks Kun if they can attack them now, but Kun stops as he comes up with another plan thanks to Neri's abilities. The scene cuts back to Anok, who tries to snatch the necklace from Ren, but he defends the necklace and quickly wounds her in the abdomen. He then snatches the green April and keeps it. He intends to kill Anok, but first he decides to bring in Endorsi to give her a chance to redeem herself by killing Anok. He reveals that the test was specifically designed to get rid of Anok, as her birth was against the rules of the tower. Ren gives the green April to Endorsi to get rid of Anok. Endorsi approaches Anok, but instead of finishing her off, she returns her the green April and asks Anok to give her the Black March. They both agree to finish Ren off together. While that is happening, Shibisu continues to search for the princesses, and while shouting he meets Yuri the princess. On the other hand, Rak carries Paraskule, the green guy, to safety and decides to confront the goblins. In the meantime, the princesses manage to subdue Ren, but seeing Endorsi let her guard down, he attacks her using his electric blast that sends her flying. He then hits Anok and steps on her wound. At that very moment, Yuri the princess arrives on the scene with the help of Shibisu. Ren, surprised to see her, explains that he is on a mission to retrieve the 13-month swords. Yuri sees the swords lying on the ground and decides that she will take care of the swords. Meanwhile, Rak finds himself surrounded by multiple goblins, and although he can fight them off, Paraskule fears for his life as the goblins start to multiply. Laurel intervenes using her power, lifts everyone to the sky. Back to Yuri. She gets threatened by Ren, who accuses her of betraying the king by protecting the imposters. Yuri warns him to stay away, or she will kill him, but Ren, hearing this, only gets excited and attacks her. However, he fails to do her any harm, and instead Yuri sends him flying with a single flick of her finger. In the meantime, the goblins and the striped pigs are in the middle of a fight, as the pigs were lured there by Neri and Laura with the help of Kun. Right behind Kun appears Evankhel, who was accompanying Yuri on her journey and was also a member of the Kun family. Meanwhile, Hansung is watching the test from a monitor far away along with Liro and Quant. They notice Yuri but do not recognize her as the camera was far away. When he tries to identify the person, the monitor signal cuts out. Quant suggests intervening with the infiltrator, but Hansung stops him. Liro feels Hansung was very calm given the dire situation, which raises suspicions. Later, it is revealed that Evankhel was responsible for cutting the transmission. In the meantime, Evan and Kurudin, who also accompanied Yuri, rush off to find Yuri. On their way they meet Hansung, who invites them to tea. After asking them several questions, Evan gets straight to the point and tells him that they were only there to retrieve the Black March. Hansung understands this and makes it clear that he will not interfere in maintaining a neutral stance. Meanwhile, Yuri toys with Ren and is about to kill him but gets interrupted by Evan, who communicates to her with his pocket. He allows her to kill Ren, but she can't help Anok. Yuri walks away from Ren, letting Kurudin finish him off. On the other hand, Kun turns down the offer by Evankhel to see Princess Maria upon hearing that he leaves. We then see Ren completely crushed while Yuri manages to recover the Black March. In his last words, Ren tells Yuri and the two princesses that he had sent the bull after Bam. Shortly after, the bull arrives and starts attacking Bam. Yuri mentions to the others that she is going to interfere in the test to help Bam, but Hansung warns her not to, as Bam will be disqualified if she does. She doesn't care about that, but Anok pleads with her not to do so as they will all climb the tower together. Yuri decides not to interfere, adhering to Anok's request. Shortly after, Bam gets attacked by the bull as he tries to shoot his Shinsu bullets at it. To end it all, the bull decides to swallow Bam whole. Before Bam gets swallowed, the Shinsu bullet he was aiming starts to glow. Inside the bull's body, Bam releases the bullet, which causes it to explode. Bam falls right into Rachel's arm. Bam assures Rachel that they can now climb to the top of the tower together and gaze at the stars. Rachel looks at Bam and extends her hand towards him, but to Bam's surprise, she rises from her seat and pushes him out of the bubble, causing him to drift in the never-ending depths. As Bam drowns deep into the water, Rachel gives out a sigh of relief. Bam is dead. She feels guilty and remembers the past. She had abandoned Bam as she felt the tower was calling her. Climbing it was her dream. When she had teleported to the tower as an irregular, Head-On informed her that she was mistaken. The tower had not called her. She begged Head-On to be allowed to climb the tower, so he tested her. She was tasked to break the ball safeguarded by the giant eel. She called out the unfairness of the test, but Head-On silenced her using a weak amount of Shinsu. Head-On teleported Bam to the same place, telling Rachel that he was her savior. Bam was able to clear the level, showing the difference in abilities. Rachel grows jealous of Bam. She begged Head-On that she wanted to the stars, but Head-On corrected her that she wanted to become a star herself, to shine among others despite her frail state. Despite this, Head-On gave her a special test out of pity. She was tasked to kill Bam if she wanted to climb further. To make up for her weakness, she was allowed to resurrect once more and was given a bodyguard from Hell, who joined the same team as Rachel. During the crown game, she had hoped that someone else had killed Bam, not wanting to do it herself. Hwaryeon, the masked girl, had been previously told by Hansung to use Rachel as bait to see if Bam was capable of what they desired. Rachel, oblivious to this, was told that Bam would die for her. Rachel was struck as a result, but Bam saved her. Waiting for an opportunity to kill Bam, she found it very hard to separate her emotions and her plans. She went frugal, saving her points and secluding herself in her room. Seeing everyone bond with him, she grew envious. Questioning Rachel's conviction, Hwaryeon warned her that at her current pace, she would never climb the tower. Hwaryeon tells her that she needs to get close to Bam, which she will if she sees the signs. Hwaryeon had sent the letter to Ho, making him believe that Rachel's death would steer away Bam. Bam, having witnessed Rachel get stabbed, rushed to her. Rachel realized that these were the signs Hwaryeon had told her about. Following that event, everything went according to plan. But, for a slight moment, during Ho's funeral, Rachel wished for Bam to run away. But Bam reminds her that he is indebted to her for helping him in the cave. Rachel could not subside her feelings of jealousy and hatred that kept brewing for Bam, but still was not ready to kill him, until she was given one last chance by Hansung to kill Bam by assigning them together in a mission. During the mission, Bam expresses his desire to be with Rachel forever. He tells Rachel that he would, at the top, wish for her to be with him. She realizes that she had been diverting herself from the fact that Bam was the star that she had forever wished to become. Seeing that she was not blessed by Shinsu and that Bam was the special one, she felt that she was a shadow casted by the star. To replace his position as a star, she throws Bam off. Reaching outside, everyone is alarmed to see Rachel come out alone. She lies that she lost Bam when they were attacked by a bull. Rachel falls unconscious immediately after. Waking up, Hwaryeon congratulates her on completing the task. Liro-Ro, unable to find Bam's body, informs everyone that he was probably eaten by a fish. Everyone passes, but Bam's death is more saddening than the news of passing. Rak and Kun are distraught. Shortly after, Hansung sips his coffee challengingly as Liro-Ro towers over him in anger, accusing him of foul play with tampering the game and using Rachel. Hansung corrects Liro-Ro that Rachel made those choices on her own. Meanwhile, to honor Bam's death, Hats convinces everyone to take Rachel to the top as that was Bam's dream. Kun agrees and decides to climb so he can change the unfair rules that they are bound by. Liro-Ro decides to quit as a test administrator, making Quant lose his position too by default. As Quant gets mad getting dragged into this, Liro-Ro asks him if he would join him in his quest to climb the tower to seek the truth. Meanwhile, Hansung feels relieved as he is successful in making the princesses of Jahad believe that Bam is dead, whereas, in reality, he still is alive. Hwaryeon finds Bam protected by Shinsu inside a cave. Hansung, in the meantime, bids farewell to the climbers as they progress on to the next stage. Kun tells Rachel that Bam cared about someone like her and wishes that he had found Bam before Rachel. Bam awakens in the cave. He asks Hwaryeon about Rachel, but she reminds him of her betrayal. She tells Bam that he is strong and can become God, but Bam is uninterested. He just wants answers to Rachel's actions, so Hwaryeon suggests him to take the climb. All of his answers can be given at the top. Bam denies this, but will take the climb as he will find the answers by himself. Hwaryeon decides to train him, and this was the beginning of the journey to the top of the Tower of God.